From Kansas State University, this is Agriculture Today. Eric Atkinson with you, and here's today's lineup. K-State's Gregg Ibendahl will tell us of a brand new online tool now available to you farmers and landlords for comparing various cropland leasing options. It's called the Lease Simulation Tool, which he says greatly simplifies the process while capturing all of those variables that go into a good lease agreement decision. Also today, a preview of the 2021 Women Managing the Farm Conference, set for early February. K-State's Janel Koons will tell us about it. Registration's being taken now. And later this week's horticulture segment, K-State's Gregg Eyestone talks about planting that live Christmas tree once the holidays are over. All that here on Agriculture Today. Agricultural producers, landowners, and creditors, you have a partner in your legal and financial needs. Kansas Agricultural Mediation Services offers reliable, trusted information and guidance. Whether you need advice for ag credit concerns or are transitioning your operation to the next owner, Kansas Agricultural Mediation Services can assist you in making sound decisions for your business. To learn more, call 800-321-3276 or visit us online. Thanks for being along with us once again. This is the K-State Radio Network and Agriculture Today. Whenever the Department of Agricultural Economics comes up with a new and useful tool or mechanism for you producers to use, we'd like to get the word out on it as rapidly as possible. That's the case right here, as that department has just posted on its agmanager.info website a new farm lease simulation tool. And as you producers consider those leasing arrangements for 2021 production, this could come in awfully handy. Joining us now, one of the two individuals who assembled this, Gregg Ibendahl, is a farm management economist with K-State Research and Extension. He partnered with grain market economist Dan O'Brien of K-State to create this simulation tool. So what is it, Gregg, and why was it put together?
Well, it's mainly a tool to kind of help us use our budgets in a better fashion to look at leasing arrangements. So, our crop budgets are really our building block for about anything we do in ag econ, because they're kind of what we project what may happen with crops in the state for the coming year. So this tool is kind of nice because it allows you to work with those directly without having to do a bunch of copying and pasting. It seemed natural to me to make a tool where you could look at everything together without having to do copy and paste, which seems to be the case with some of our older tools. So what this tool actually has built into the background of it is all of our different crop leases for the state. And basically, you pick out a piece of property you're thinking about leasing, and what you do is you pick the crops that you might have for that particular property in a rotation and look at them all together. It will calculate a cost per acre. It will calculate a cost to the landlord. So we can do several things with it. We can look at cash leases, obviously. We can look at different share arrangements. And then we've also got, it's probably a little bit more in the beta mode yet, our experimental mode, but we're also looking at analyzing flex leases too.
Really covering the waterfront with the types of leases that producers would normally employ out there.
Yeah, so the easiest one to look at is a cash lease, obviously, because that's kind of just a one payment to the landlord, and everyone knows what they're getting. It's certainly the higher risk option for a tenant because you're assuming all the risk, whereas landlord is guaranteed a payment. But then we have the ability, which our older tool KSU Lease does, which is still around because it's a little more comprehensive. But this tool will basically allow you then to you can put in the things you're going to share at a fixed percent, and then the things you're thinking about sharing in what we would call like an equitable or share lease, you can allow the tool actually to pick that for you, so both tenant and landlord are assuming an equal amount of risk on that.
This is billed as a simulation, though. It's not just an exercise here or a budget sheet per se. It'll actually crank out results to these leasing agreements as one might evaluate them, correct?
Yeah, I think our tool actually is probably unique in the country for that, because that's a big thing when you look at a lease arrangement, because normally you just plug in what you think your expected price is going to be and what your expected yield will be, and it will spit out some numbers for you, and that's fairly easy to actually program and such. But any producer knows, what we have in our budgets at the beginning of the year is certainly not what's going to happen at the end of the year, despite our best estimates. So what this tool does actually then, it has a Monte Carlo simulation part built into it. And it's sophisticated enough that it will actually look at correlation between different crops. So, if you have soybeans and corn, obviously are going to be correlated. So if you have probably a good yield year for corn, you're probably going to have pretty good output for soybeans then too. So it takes that into account. And what it does is it looks at a range of prices where the expected price that you have in the budget is kind of your starting point, middle point. Then it looks at prices above and below that a user can specify. It does the same thing for yields. And then it looks at any correlation between the crops you have in your rotation, and it does a 200 iteration simulation. So you get to see what can happen over that entire range, with your expected price and yield being the most common one that's going to show up in that simulation. So it should give you a fairly good idea of what could typically happen with that piece of property. And you can see what the different returns are going to be both to the tenant and landlord for different kinds of lease arrangements.
But you said something right there. This will facilitate as many as 200 iterations. That's pretty robust, Gregg.
Well, actually, it probably could be more, but there's some limitations with Excel and such that I had to work around. So if I run 200 iterations on my computer, that takes about 5 seconds. And when I start upping that, normally I like to have like 1,000 iterations of it, but that was just slowing things down too much. So 200 will give you a pretty fair idea without slowing your computer down too much.
Right. But this is loaded with variables that will allow for those iterations to come together. When you look at the crop inputs in particular here, everything can be accounted for there, just about any situation that one might be employing as far as those expenses, how they might be shared, and so forth.
Yeah, so the way the simulation part works is we start off with the basic expected price, expected yield, which are pulled directly from the budget. And then a producer can put what they think their high price is going to be and what their low price is going to be. And the same thing for yield. You specify a high and a low yield that you might think could happen during the year, and then it will run the results from that. And the results basically then show you the results for the cash lease, the share lease, and then 2 different types of flex leases in there as well.
One important thing here, because this is quite an involved tool, you have associated videos that producers can look at, and if they aren't sure whether they're employing this tool properly or if they get lost in the process here, they can use these as tutorials for working this up.
Yeah, so I always find, whenever I come across these tools on the web, there's usually very little documentation for these things, and you're kind of free to experiment with a lot of these things. So one of my goals for this tool was actually to make it easy to use and such. So I have built a lot of these, these little Post-it notes kind of things that go into the cells that you can turn on or off with one switch. So a lot of it's self-documented that way. And then I do have a page at the very beginning that has some directions. And then to help those who like to do things more visually and through videos, I also have 5 separate little videos that go along with that show you how to do the different components of it. So I hope I have it pretty well documented. I'll probably be doing more agent training and such as the year goes along too.
But would one want to, in fact, Gregg, as they employ this tool, intend to run multiple scenarios, not just hone in on 1 or 2, but try to look at all perspectives here as far as that preferred leasing arrangement?
Yeah, so, leasing is a pretty big decision. So normally if you're going to do some kind of lease, you're probably going to sign some kind of multi-year agreement typically in a lot of cases. So I think it's to the benefit of both to the landlord and tenants both, really, to look at what your potential range of outcomes are going to be. So I think one of the reasons why we see a big switch now in a lot of parts of the country to cash leases is, from the landlord's perspective, that's a very low risk thing. You're kind of locking in a guaranteed amount of money every year, but that may not be your best option. So I think with this tool, if you are wanting to help share risk with the landlord and they're willing to do it, you can actually show them, well, this is the kind of range of outcome you're potentially getting. You could potentially make more as a landlord with a share arrangement if you're willing to take on a little risk, and this would actually help convince people, who may not have too much of an association with agriculture anymore, may not be knowing what they're getting into. This will kind of help show them the kind of range of outcomes they could expect to get from a different kind of lease.
And is it fair to say an ever more realistic view of those outcomes and the likely results of those leases than what we've had in the past in the way of supportive tools of this type?
Yeah, I think in the past, what was typically done when you look at different risk arrangements is you kind of do a sensitivity table, and you have like a range of prices along one axis and a range of yields along the other axis, and then you have all these different spots in the table that represent all those points. Well, as you probably know, some of those points aren't going to be as likely to occur as some of the other ones. So your expected yield and price are probably going to be where the majority of your outcomes actually come from. And the sensitivity table doesn't really account for that. Now, this tool will, because it's using simulation techniques, it will put more weight on those outcomes that are more likely to occur. So it should be more of a realistic picture of what you can expect from a given lease than what a table would show you.
It sounds sophisticated, but it's user-friendly. You're going to advocate that.
Well, I hope so. I really think it's a step up from our KSU lease, as someone has tried to use that in the past, which is a lot of filling in blank. Now, it covers a lot of the things, and it does a lot of things too. But this does, I would say, probably 90 to 95% of what KSU lease would do. But it's a lot simpler tool to use, because to put the budgets together is just a set of drop-down menus on the first page, and then there's another page where you can specify the parameters of your lease, and then there's an output page, and that's really the bulk of what this tool does. I can do it in about 3 screens, what KSU lease would probably take about a half dozen or more to do. So from that perspective, I think it's a lot easier to use.
So producers can simply go to agmanager.info and click on the link to this tool and start running with it?
Yep, it should be good to download. As you mentioned, there are 5 supplemental videos that talk about different aspects of the tool, so I would recommend producers kind of go through those before they get too carried away with it. And then again, look at the documentation. About each page on the spreadsheet has a button you can click that will show all the Post-it notes I have that go along with all the different cells. That should explain, I think, the majority of it. So I think that should give a producer a good start toward actually using this tool and making use of it on their farm.
Specifically, those tutorial videos will give you a general overview of the tool, how to create a new budget, cash versus share rents, how to interpret the results that you get, and how to run the simulations that provide those results. It's all very friendly to use, and we'd invite landlords and tenants alike to check out this new K-State Cropland Lease Simulation Tool at agmanager.info. It's a great resource to take advantage of. Congratulations on putting this together. Gregg, thank you for telling us about it right here.
Thanks for having me.
Farm management economist, K-State Research and Extension, Gregg Ibendahl with us, and we'll be back with more on this Agriculture Today.
Hamburgers, roast, ribs, steak, or whatever you prefer. Beef, it's what's for dinner. Kansas cattle farmers produce 7.5 million head of cattle per year. It takes about 7 tablespoons of peanut butter to get the same amount of protein in 1 serving of lean beef. Support your local Kansas farmers and ranchers. Eat beef. This message was brought to you by the K-State Animal Sciences Leadership Academy participants.
Agriculture Today continues now, this time set aside to fill you in on now a long-standing event, which is co-sponsored by many partners, including K-State Research and Extension. And despite all the pandemic complications, it will go on virtually in early February. This is the annual Women Managing the Farm Conference, the 17th edition, and we've invited by one of the co-chairs of this year's conference. She's also a program coordinator with the K-State Global Campus, Janel Koons, who's been involved in this for quite a while as well. This is, Janel, and we say this every year, but it is true, quite a keynote event.
Yes, that's correct. We typically have around 200 women that are involved with agriculture from around the state attend this conference. We see everyone from maybe someone who married into the family farm to remote landowners that are trying to manage their rental occupants from a distance to people working with associations or banks or things like that. So we have a wide variety of women that join us every year to network and learn more about their ag enterprise or how to communicate with those that are on the farm.
And you mentioned the word network. We'll come back to that and the importance of that component. What is the general intent of the conference?
Well, originally, Eric, this particular conference was part of a risk management type grant. So we like to cover several areas involved with risk management in agriculture. So it's intended to help women develop skills in those areas so they can better manage their ag enterprise and manage the risk that comes with that. that's what we really try and focus the topics of this conference on, is around those risk management areas. And then we also like to throw in kind of some inspirational type pieces, or kind of more like the health and wellness side pieces to that as well.
As folks read more about this year's conference, the theme is interesting, though, Janel, creating community online and at home. So what is that getting at?
So as you know, we are in a COVID world now. So we wanted to incorporate that into our conference, because obviously it is virtual because of this unprecedented event. But, we just wanted to make sure the theme was being incorporated across the different presentations. With being at home all the time, communication is different. You kind of have to learn more about different communication styles, and people are having different types of stressors thrown at them. So we wanted to be able to incorporate that into the conference and have people discover ways that they could communicate in their current environment, but also in those communications that they're having to have online, just because of the world that we're currently living in.
A lot has been learned on the fly in that respect. So that's what you'll draw from actual experiences from participants there, as well as presenters.
Yes, and we've actually seen a lot of research come across, even from Kansas State University, that we're going to help bring to the conference about, resiliency during this time. So we're hoping to get a lot of those resources out to the women that will be attending.
Again, Janel, this will be online. It will be virtual. How are you going to facilitate that? Because there are so many elements to the traditional conference in person anyway. You're going to try to capture as much of that as you can online?
Yes, we've actually shortened our presentations a little bit, but this is to allow for us to actually have a resource library that participants can access at any time. They don't have to be online at a certain time to access that resource library. And the reason that we're able to do all this is we're going to be utilizing a conference app. Many of the virtual conferences you see, they utilize an application that you can access from your smartphone or tablet or even computer. And then attendees can go in and access live sessions. They can look at a resource library of pre-recorded sessions. They can network with, different people that pop up across the feed. So it provides kind of like just on time education for our attendees this year. So it's exciting in some ways. While we can't be face to face, we have this, technology at our fingertips that really allows you to personalize it to what you really need to get out of the conference.
And you've preserved certain elements that have been standard with the conference year upon year upon year. You've a set of featured speakers that will come in addressing various themes and topics.
Yes, we'll continue to have our keynote speakers. We're also going to have about 12 breakout sessions. We typically have more like 30 breakout sessions, but we've backed that off a bit just because it's hard with a virtual format, to get everybody to be able to attend 30 sessions. It gets overwhelming. It gets overwhelming at the in-person conference. But our keynote speakers this year, we're looking at Matt Rush, who is an inspirational speaker and author. We also have Naomi Bloom, who is going to talk about ag marketing. We actually had her a few years ago, and she was really well received. So we're happy to have her back. And then we also have Mary Kay Thatcher, and we're excited about her as well. With the transition we're seeing in government, she's going to talk about some ag policy updates. So we have a really great lineup of speakers this year that, again, are going to address those risk management areas, as well as kind of the wellness side of things during the pandemic that we're facing.
And you, as you said, will have breakout sessions, some of those crop insurance, farm succession, health insurance, production and management, marketing, finances, estate planning. Once more, you try to give a wide assortment of opportunities there, Janel.
Yeah, and I will add that some of those sessions will be recorded too and added to our resource library. So if you can't attend one, you can attend it later on, which was always, again, kind of a hang up with the in-person conference. Sometimes you had to make a choice between two really good sessions.
to come back to that word networking, because ever since this conference took shape and has succeeded highly the last 16 years, that informal networking of participants has been as valuable as any component, as has been stated many times. Are you going to be able to accommodate that through this virtual format?
Well, that hasn't entirely unfolded yet, Eric, but this app that we'll be using is much like, any social media app. It's easy to kind of chat with people on the sideline and everything. So that will be one way that folks can network with each other. And then a lot of the networking piece too involves our sponsors or vendors for the conference. And those folks will be available too throughout the conference to be able to network with them as well. But yeah, we're still ironing a bit of that out. So we'll have to see how that unfolds.
All right. Well, again, the specifics, the dates are Wednesday through Friday, February the 10th through the 12th, online. Registrations are being taken now, though, are they not, Janel?
Yes, they are. They're available at womenmanagingthefarm.com, or you can also call 785-532-2560 to register by phone. So, yeah, the registrations are available. And when you get out to our registration page on the website, we do have scholarships available as well. So those offset the cost of the conference. And the cost of the conference is $50. So folks can also apply for a scholarship to help offset that. And one more thing I'll add. For the first 100 registrants, they'll also have the opportunity to receive a swag box following the conference with little prizes and gifts from our sponsors. So that's a little bit different than we've had last year. We always have some swag going around the conference, but we'll have this special box that'll come into the mail for the first 100 registrants. So hurry and register if you haven't yet.
So again, it's easy to be part of this big event. Simply go to womenmanagingthefarm.com. You'll find all of the information on the program and added details as those are finalized, and the process for registering right there. And this is a very exciting event. Virtual it may be, but because of the high level of successes with it in the past, there's always some energy going into this, Janel.
Yes, there is. We're really excited, again, about like our keynoters and different things. It's always hard to reimagine things in a virtual format, but we actually kind of had a surprise session kind of after the pandemic hit there in the spring, and that was really exciting. And I think that gave us the momentum to get really involved in what this virtual conference was going to look like.
Well, hats off to you and your colleagues who have put the program together, and the best of luck in pulling it off here in a little over a month and a half. And great event. Janel, thank you for the preview right here.
Yes, thanks for having me, Eric.
She is Janel Koons. She's with the K-State Global Campus, program coordinator there, and serving as one of the co-chairs of the 2021 Women Managing the Farm Conference. Again, among the co-sponsors, K-State Research and Extension. Virtually, February the 10th through the 12th. WomenManagingTheFarm.com for all the particulars. And we'll return after this break. You're listening to Agriculture Today.
Did you eat today? Thank a farmer. A way to get more involved in agriculture is through 4-H and FFA. Through 4-H and FFA, we have been given multiple opportunities to grow as leaders and learn more about agriculture.
You can learn skills related to jobs, public speaking skills, and you get the opportunity to travel around the country and meet new people.
If you want more information about getting more involved in 4-H and FFA, visit them on their websites at kansasffa.org and kansas4h.org.
Broadcasting from the campus of Kansas State University, this is Agriculture Today. Eric Atkinson with you. And on we go now to today's agricultural news headlines for you, courtesy in part of DTN. Agricultural groups talking trade policy this week repeated similar themes for the incoming Biden administration to pursue, such as continuing trade talks with China and eliminating its trade tariffs, as well as rejoining a Pacific trade deal. The Farmers for Free Trade Coalition released a report on Tuesday on major trade policies. Agricultural leaders stressed U.S. production relies heavily on the need to expand market access. The recommendations likely will have a sympathetic ear at USDA from Tom Vilsack. He's been nominated, as you know, to return to his old position as Agriculture Secretary. Among the sponsors for Farmers for Free Trade, the U.S. Dairy Export Council, where Vilsack has worked as president and CEO since 2017. Now, a key point in most of these trade deal plans that farm groups want comes with the need for Congress to extend trade promotion authority. That's set to expire on July the 1st of 2021. The TPA allows the president's team to send trade deals to Congress, requiring an up or down vote, rather than letting Congress add amendments to trade deals. Agricultural groups and others are calling on Congress to swiftly extend that authority. If it doesn't happen, they say, then trade talks become even harder to complete. And maintaining the Trump administration's Phase 1 trade agreement with China is critical, they say, to assuring that China sticks to its commitment to buy, on average, at least $36 billion in agricultural and food commodities from the U.S. Farmers for Free Trade want a new round of talks for a Phase 2 deal that would go beyond 2021. Any new talks, they say, should also include a removal of the trade tariffs between the two countries, but must also come with China complying with World Trade Organization rules and eliminating the theft of intellectual property, including within agriculture. The agricultural groups have a far more extensive list of trade points that range from defending genetic terms for food names to resetting the WTO dispute panels to assuring that science-based standards are included in biotech approvals. The package of COVID aid that congressional leaders are working on and are aiming to finalize continues to contain help for agriculture. The package would authorize $13 billion in farmer aid and $13 billion in food assistance, including a temporary 15% increase in SNAP benefits. It also provides $10 billion for broadband improvements. Another provision would allow farmers and other small businesses that obtained Paycheck Protection Program or PPP loans to deduct from their tax obligations the same expenses they used to qualify for loan forgiveness. And the USDA recently updated its livestock production and price estimates for the current calendar year. The USDA's Rod Bain takes a look.
As 2020 closes, so soon will USDA's livestock production and price estimates for this year. The latest outlooks from World Agricultural Outlook Board Chair Mark Jekanowski indicates
our beef production estimate for 2020 was increased fractionally. Pork forecast for 2020 increased a bit based on slaughter pace and weight. Broilers for both 2020 and 2021, we pulled back our production forecast a bit. That reflects slaughter data and what we're seeing in our hatchery data.
As for prices for December,
we're just truing up our forecast based on recent data. So we pulled our steer price forecast down by 25 cents a hundredweight. Hog price forecast for 2020, we increased it by 25 cents a hundredweight based on data that we're observing.
With broiler prices increasing almost 2 cents month over month, now at 73.5 cents a pound. I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
And Tyson Foods has fired 7 top managers at its largest pork plant after an independent investigation into allegations that they wagered on how many workers would test positive for the coronavirus. That's an announcement from the company yesterday. They said the investigation, led by former U.S. Attorney General Eric Holder, revealed troubling behavior that resulted in the firings at the plant at Waterloo, Iowa. The company did not release the names of those fired or detailed findings of that investigation. Next up on Agriculture Today, this week's edition of the Kansas Soybean Update. Awaiting with that, Gregg Ibendahl. Greg?
Katie Carruthers is joining us. She is a volunteer for Common Ground Kansas. And Common Ground Kansas, Katie, has a great opportunity inviting families to join them virtually as Santa will be hosting them on his farm.
We're excited to partner together and bring Santa to the farm.
This will take place on Sunday, December 20th at 5 p.m. Central Time. And they can go to Common Ground Kansas's Facebook page to find that?
Yep. We'll have it recorded on our Facebook, and you can watch it. You can watch it in July if you want. So we're going to leave it up so that people can always see it.
They get to see Santa on his farm. What are some of the things that Santa is going to show them on his farm?
As we kind of had a brainstorm, we realized that Santa, and really just Christmas even, they have so many ag connections that a lot of people don't know about, and we wanted to be able to show just how much farmers and ranchers bring to the literal Christmas table. So we're going to have some little pigs. Santa's going to visit pigs for those that have bacon and eggs for Christmas morning. And we have a popcorn farmer, and a lot of people string popcorn for their Christmas tree garland. We have someone that's going to make Chex Mix, because everyone has Chex Mix, and, that comes from corn. And we have a couple other agriculture producers that are going to pop in, say hi to Santa, welcome them to their farm, and it's going to be really neat. I'm excited.
So in one aspect, those Kansas farmers are Santa's elves on his farm.
We are all his elves. Yeah, we sure are. Yeah.
Okay, so if people want to join the experience coming up on Sunday, December 20th, they can go to the Facebook page once again. Do they need to register?
No registering. You can go, and if you click going, it'll remind you the day of. But yeah, it's facebook.com/Common Ground Kansas. We'll also share it on our Common Ground USA page, and a lot of other places are going to show it, Kansas soybean and stuff like that. So we're going to try to spread the word so that, COVID has affected so many things on visiting Santa, getting to see Santa, and we just thought it would be a really neat way to bridge the gap between Santa and kids that maybe didn't get to see him, and also kids that maybe don't get to visit the farm and see what all goes into it.
And Katie, in case people can't watch the event on Sunday, December 20th at 5 p.m. Central, they can see it the whole Christmas week and beyond that, too?
Yep, we will save it to our Facebook page, so you can log on anytime and see that.
That's facebook.com/Common Ground Kansas. Katie, we appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
That is Katie Carruthers, who is a volunteer for Common Ground Kansas. She joins us on the Kansas Soybean Update. It's brought to you by the Kansas Soybean Commission.
Gregg Ibendahl there. Thanks, Greg. And we'll be back shortly. This is Agriculture Today. For 25 years, K-State Research and Extension's Kansas Agricultural Mediation Services has been providing a no-cost, confidential place to call in and visit with an agricultural lawyer. Our experts are available to help you producers handle legal and financial issues. Explore your options and generate solutions. Call us at 800-321-3276 or visit us online. Kansas Agricultural Mediation Services. Coming your way now on Agriculture Today. It's our time set aside weekly to talk horticulture. And along with us this time is the Riley County Extension Horticultural Agent, Gregg Eyestone. And Greg, we're going to talk about planting. Ironically enough, we're deep into December now. Those who purchased a live Christmas tree, how to handle that tree post-holiday, and most with the idea that they're going to place that tree in their home landscape. This is a tremendous idea if they've had that much forethought.
It is. It's a good way to add to your landscape, and maybe in an affordable way, since it's kind of doing two things at once. I know a nurseryman that did that for many years and created quite a beautiful landscape, and so it is an option. Maybe you've already selected your tree. One of the items about a live plant in the home is, that's a different environment for it. And so we don't really want to extend that time period. So if you can only bring it in for a few days, use the decorations, use your celebration, but then get it ready to go back outside. And it's going to take a little acclimation to the weather changes or temperature changes. So probably after Christmas, hopefully a day or two, you'll move it to the garage to kind of acclimate it to the outdoors. Assuming that we have typical winter weather or December weather. You never know with Kansas. It may be 70 degrees after Christmas. But probably want to acclimate it so that it can survive the change of environments.
And while it's, in fact, still indoors, of course, you want to care for it appropriately. Keep that ball watered as you can, right?
Yeah, you'll just have to monitor that probably on at least a daily basis to make sure that root ball stays moist. And so, it does have the moisture it needs. It's not a stressed plant going out into the environment.
While that tree's still indoors for that short duration, one can, though, go ahead and dig the hole for that planting anytime.
That's a great idea, just in case the weather does change quickly on us, which it can. So I'd go ahead and get the spot definitely picked out before you even buy the tree, so you know where it's going, and then prepare the hole simply by digging it. You can either cover the hole up with a tarp, or if you're using a wheelbarrow, bring that in so your soil doesn't freeze up on you, so it makes it easier for planting when it can be done.
And just a reminder about the scale of that hole in comparison to the root ball itself, how big it needs to be.
Well, we always like to go wider if you can, at least the size of your root ball, but the wider you make that hole, or at least loosen up the soil, the better it's going to be. Now, we do want to make sure we're not planting that plant deeper, or that it will settle and get deeper, because those roots definitely need the oxygen. So I do need to do some measurement as far as your root ball size, depth, and make that same depth of a hole, or even a little bit raised up. Generally works for most of our soils. But if you can loosen the ground around that hole, that would help as well.
So standard planting procedures: place the tree, backfill the hole, mulch, stake, all of it?
Yeah, depending on the size of your tree, on the staking aspect of it, but a good watering in will be important, and probably that mulch is really good. Insurance policy, a couple inches of some coarse material over the root ball and the area that you might have loosened up, to kind of just keep the soil at more of a uniform temperature for that plant.
Gregg, is it a wise idea, once that tree is in place, to fertilize it? Is that necessary at this stage of the season?
I wouldn't worry about adding anything to your watering or your planting hole. Typically, our soils have lots of nutrients for our woody plants. If you did a soil test and there's a lacking, then yes, that would be the answer of whether you add something. But typically, there's not a problem at all. And if you're wanting it to grow a little bit faster, maybe in a few springs from now, you could go ahead and add some nitrogen to get a little more growth out of it. But typically, our soils are just fine with the nutrients.
Christmas Day or day after, get that tree out into the garage or other outbuilding, let it acclimate to that change in temperature for 2 or 3 days, and then outdoors you go?
Yeah, probably 2 or 3 days would be good. Again, it kind of depends on our weather conditions and what you have available. But, yeah, you're wanting to get that in the ground so that that root zone can be buffered with the existing soil that'll be around it.
It'll be a Christmas gift that'll last a long, long while in your landscape if you go about it correctly. That is, planting a live Christmas tree. But you say, Gregg, you received a question or two of late about planting other things that didn't get in, quote, on time, including those spring flowering bulbs.
Yes, so there's two options there. The main one is probably purchase those or given those to be put into the landscape. And as long as the ground's not frozen and you can dig a hole, I would encourage you to get that accomplished in the same process as with the live Christmas tree. Water that in well and probably put a mulch layer over that, but they should just do fine and still flower and bloom next spring. The other option would be going to the forcing method, so you can enjoy the flowers. Of course, that will take the process of keeping them cold. Typically, what we do is put them in the refrigerator. They may take up to 12 weeks to initiate the flower buds, but then you can pull them out and either pot them up and enjoy them indoors. As we get closer to March and April, if the weather's cooperative, you could put them in pots and put them outside in the yard as well. That flower initiation just has to go through that cold treatment, and if the ground's frozen, then that's the option for bulbs that you have. Of course, if you do the forcing method, those bulbs really aren't going to be a perennial type of plant. You'd be enjoying the flowers while you can, and then probably disposing of them. You could plant them, but the likelihood of those getting rooted and producing food energy for a bloom next spring is probably pretty limited.
And, in fact, if one is wanting to make these a perennial feature and they have the option of planting those bulbs in the ground now or waiting until spring, is now better than the springtime.
Yes, it's hard to keep these over through the winter time. Probably best thing is if you have a refrigerator space, keep them cool and dry. That's any type of living material. That's how we slow it down. And so it's best if you have them and you can get out into the landscape, it's best to put them in the ground.
Anything else besides bulbs that can be planted at this time of the year, though? We're getting down to the end of the list, aren't we?
Yeah, but, there are some nursery things and things still out there. And if you bought something and you haven't got it in the ground, it's always better to have that insulation of the soil. The outdoor environment should be fine. We just kind of want to moderate it from the extremes that we typically get, the hot and cold back and forth. That's really hard on our plants.
Gregg, thanks as always. We appreciate the comments.
It's my pleasure, and hope everybody has a happy holidays.
And likewise to you and yours. Gregg Eyestone, Riley County Extension Horticulture Agent on this week's Horticulture segment. That's our time for today. As always, thanks for joining us. Eric Atkinson here. This has been Agriculture Today over the K-State Radio Network.